Hello. In the beginning of this video series, I described GIS as a data visualization tool. In the last few videos, you have seen examples of these visualizations in the form of the maps that ArcGIS Pro generates. So, you might ask, where's the data? What is ArcGIS Pro using to generate these maps? The answer to both of these questions is the attribute tables. That may not mean much to you now, but I hope to make it clearer. In the Contents window, you can open the attribute table for a data layer by right-clicking on the layer name and then, logically, selecting Attribute Table. Depending upon whether the layer contains raster or vector data, the contents of the attribute table will be fundamentally different. For example, the attribute table for the Wetlands Habitats layer, which contains raster data, has one entry for each category of habitat. For example, open water, background, 1 to 3 species, etc. By contrast, the attribute table for the aquifer layer, which contains vector data, has one entry for every single map feature. As you can see, the attribute table can contain a series of fields containing a variety of information pertaining to each feature. By default, the attribute table initially appears at the bottom of the screen. You can, however, change this by click and dragging the tab at the upper left of the table. As you do this, a target will appear consisting of 4 squares arrayed around the center square. Dragging your cursor to one of the 4 outer squares and then releasing your left mouse button will result in the attribute table moving to either the left, upper, right, or bottom side of the map, depending upon which square you select. For now, let's just go back to the default position at the bottom of the map. If you're unhappy with the size of your attribute table, hover your cursor above the narrow space immediately above the Table tab. When an up-down arrow appears, click and drag upwards to make the table bigger, or lower to make it smaller. In this case, I felt as though the table was taking up too much space. Even though I've made the attribute table smaller, it's still partially obscuring my view of the aquifer layer on the map, and I don't like that. So, in the Contents window, I'm going to right-click on the layer name and select Zoom to Layer. The aquifer layer is now fully visible above its attribute table. Let's now look at some basic functionality of the attribute table. Try right-clicking on the header of a field containing numerical data, for example, the DW field. For starters, select the Sort Ascending option, followed by Sort Descending. Take note of the change in the records shown at the top of the table. Next, choose Statistics. Up until now, the display area at the bottom of the map has had a single tab, that is, the tab for the attribute table. Now, there's a second tab which displays the statistical summary that you just requested. Since you specified that you wanted statistics for the DW field, it's showing a bar graph indicating the number of records corresponding to different values of DW. Also note that the Contents window now includes a Distribution of DW chart. Also, on the right side of the page, note the Chart Properties window that has been superimposed over the Catalog window. When you're done looking at the bar graph, you may close its tab. Now let's try something a bit more ambitious. This time, try right-clicking on the Descript column heading of the attribute table and selecting Summarize. You will initially see a pop-up requiring you to provide information needed to prepare your summary. The first piece of information is the dataset from which you will be preparing your summary. You may leave this set to Aquifer. Next, you need to provide a name for your output table and indicate where you want to locate it. Here is a golden opportunity to use your file geodatabase. Navigate to your file geodatabase, provide a name for your output file, and click on Save. Your summary will summarize your data on the basis of the unique values in the Descript field. For the Statistics field, select the fields that you want included in your summary and the values you want for them. For example, the sum, mean value, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, etc. The final entry for Case field should already be set to Descript. That is what you want. So go ahead and click on OK. After ArcGIS Pro has finished generating your table, it will appear in the Contents window as a standalone table. Right-click on the table's name to open it. The table will appear as a new tab in the display area below the map. Once you're done examining it, close the tab. As you can see, the attribute table for the aquifer layer has lots of fields, but what if that's not enough? What if you need more? No worries, ArcGIS Pro has you covered. At the top of the attribute table, click on the Add icon. A new tab will appear listing your data fields with your new, yet-to-be-defined field at the bottom. For field name, I'm going to use new_field. This is a good time to remember to avoid blank spaces in your names or path names. So in this case, I'm separating the words new and field by an underscore instead of a blank space. I'm going to set the data type to double, which will allow me to keep decimal values in this field. I'm setting the number format to numeric with 2 decimal places displayed. Now, close the tab and when prompted, click Yes to indicate that you wish to save all changes. Looking at your attribute table, you will find that the rightmost column is your new field, named, appropriately, New Field. And looking at it a bit more closely, you will see that all of its values are 0. What good is that? To address this, at the top of the attribute table, click on the Calculate icon. The Calculate field pop-up template will now appear. The first entry for input table should already be set to aquifer, in which case you can leave this alone since this is in fact the desired input table. The second entry for field name needs to be set to new_field, since this is the field for which you wish to calculate values. You can leave the third entry expression type set to Python 3. At this point, I'm going to just make up a formula to calculate values for new field. On the left side of the template, you'll see all of the fields for the data set listed. To the right are helpers, which are a wide variety of functions that can be employed in your formula. Below the helpers are the 4 basic arithmetic functions: multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. In the Fields area, double-click on DW. You'll see this appear below in the formula bar at the bottom of the template. Now, click on the plus sign. Again, you will see this reflected in the formula at the bottom. At the upper right corner of the helpers area, check on the funnel icon and indicate that you want to limit the functions displayed to numeric functions. From the functions displayed, double-click on math.sqrt. This will be added to the function at the bottom. Note that the parentheses in the formula are empty. That's because you haven't said what you want to take the square root of. Click between the parentheses, then, in the Fields area, double-click on NRV. Your formula is now complete. Click on OK. Check the New Field field in your attribute. It now contains your calculated values. To close the display at the bottom of the page, close the tab for the attribute table. I'm pretty sure this has been my longest video in the series. I will try to make the next one, in which I will discuss how to select features of interest in your dataset, a bit shorter.